Hello, welcome back. This week I'm putting my sourdough starter, kneading skills, and patience to the test by making every bread in our meals with 100% whole wheat flour. I usually go half and half, but this time I'm pushing it to see which breads rise to the challenge. Along the way, I'm pairing these breads with healthy, delicious meals you can easily make at home. And if you like this type of thing, don't forget to subscribe and join me as I learn the skills behind making nourishing from scratch meals. With all the delicious toppings, pizza is one of the easiest breads to make with only whole wheat flour, and this recipe turned out so good. To start, just add active sourdough starter, olive oil, honey, salt, and any herbs or seasoning you like. I like to add garlic and onion powder, but a fresh herb would be amazing too. Mix all that with a little warm water and add in all the whole wheat flour. I'm doubling the recipe I'll link below to make 2 pizzas, but the key here is to add the water slowly. Every flour and starter will take on that water a little differently and need a different amount. I added about 1/4 cup more than the recipe called for until it formed a soft dough that wasn't too sticky. Grease the ball and just let it rise for about 3 hours or until dinner. It will kind of depend on the temperature in your house. But with a sick baby in the house and this whole week challenge this week, a strong coffee is definitely in order. And this homemade pumpkin spice creamer that I've been making on repeat made it feel a little extra special. I'll link the video for that too. One thing I've noticed with whole wheat dough is it can dry out a little bit easier during the rise. So going forward, I'm going to start using plastic wrap for like a better coverage than just a towel and a plate. Rolling out the dough one-handed is a little tricky, that's mom life, but I got there. I just use plenty of flour and shape it gently by lifting and adjusting as needed. Doing this directly on parchment paper made it way easier too, and the sweetest little baby smooches in between makes it also worth it. After a few pokes in the dough or 1,000 like my son gave, I moved on to the toppings. Just whatever I have left over or veggies I can find is usually what I use on a pizza. And while prepping that, I preheat the oven to 450 with a cast iron skillet inside. No fancy or extra pizza stone here, just a trusty cast iron skillet, and it works great. For a quick salad, I've always made this really easy go-to kind of like balsamic vinaigrette. It's a teaspoon of Dijon mustard, a little bit of salt and pepper, a pinch of whatever Italian herb I would like, teaspoon of balsamic vinegar, and a little honey. Whisk all that together and then just slowly add in the olive oil until it emulsifies into this like thick, delicious dressing. Just don't go overboard with olive oil or it will separate. I keep it in the fridge all week for an easy salad based on what I can kind of gather from the garden these days. Back to the pizza. Just have to bake that crust for 8 minutes and then add your toppings and bake for another 12 minutes. This dough is on the thicker side, which my kids actually love, and they didn't notice at all that it was only whole wheat. I think this was definitely the thing that hit it the best this week, and I could barely tell it myself. It puffed up beautifully. The cook time is a little bit longer, but I think that's more because of just the recipe, not necessarily whole wheat. And that's the only real downside of this recipe. On the second pizza, I added prosciutto, which we have often in the fridge, and it's a great kind of substitute to pepperonis, and it tastes so good when it's gotten crispy in the oven. With the kids in bed and feeling a little tired, I pushed through and got started on a batch of whole wheat hamburger buns for tomorrow's pulled pork sandwiches. Sometimes, I just definitely don't feel like doing this at night, but once I'm in the kitchen, it actually starts to feel relaxing. But I do have to fight the television calling my name most nights. This recipe though is really simple, just active starter, warm water, honey, salt, and melted butter in with that whole wheat flour kneaded in the mixer until it passes the window pane test. Something I've recently learned is to try to wipe off the starter from whatever like jar or spatula I'm using with a wet paper towel before washing it. It's not so great for your pipes to rinse too much sourdough down the drain. And now I had high hopes this dough would rise beautifully overnight, but I didn't realize I was about to get so sick with whatever my toddler had and totally missed the chance to give it the attention it needed the next day. Well, we all got extremely sick yesterday, so I didn't really get to have the pulled pork sandwiches that I hoped for. The buns that I made, I'm not sure if it's the whole wheat or just the fact that I didn't really follow the recipe. I just barely got them made at the end of the night, or the fact that they went in the refrigerator for a while, but they didn't really rise nicely. I think I'll just use them on a charcuterie board tonight with some leftovers because we're not very hungry, but I don't know, I might stick with more like 1/3 whole wheat on stuff that needs to be fluffier like hamburger buns. We'll see. Might try again. With the darker season creeping in, a new set of beeswax candles arrived. I'm really loving these. These are free from any synthetic fragrances. They burn with minimal soot and are even said to help purify the air, which is perfect for the kitchen. They also last longer and drip less than regular candles. Sometimes I do crave a scented candle, especially as we get close to Christmas, but for everyday use, these are perfect. Give a nice golden light, and a light like honey-like aroma is so cozy. But back to the bread. Even though these didn't rise at all and are pretty dense, I salvaged it with some mini sandwich buns. My kids have also been loving them sliced kind of thin with a bit of butter in the mornings melted on top. And honestly, I'm all about a good clean out the fridge night, especially when we've been sick. I don't want to be spending too much time in the kitchen. Add some fruit on the side and let the kids pick their own toppings or whatever they want from it. It's always a hit. I did a bit of research for a recipe for focaccia bread that would be good with 100% whole wheat. Not whole wheat, almond flour. Back with whole wheat. It does take a little bit more steps. I actually like that focaccia bread is really easy to make. It doesn't take much babying, stretch and folds, none of that. You kind of like mix it and it's done. But this one does take a little bit more effort, but we'll see if it's worth it for the better nutrition. First, you got to put a little too much. First, you let the whole wheat flour sit in some warm water for an hour. And then you go back and add the starter and salt and do some stretch and fold. So it's not bad. Hopefully it'll turn out good. Now back after an hour and feeling very fresh from a shower to add the sourdough starter and salt. I always feed my starter right away so I don't forget. And this dough, oddly enough, was so lovely to mix by hand. It wasn't too sticky, it pulled away easily and just came together like a dream. Honestly, I want to make it again just to do this part. I imagine this is kind of how kids feel playing with that slime. After mixing it, I let it rest and then just came back for some stretch and folds every 15 minutes with wet hands, aiming to do 6 rounds. I think I only got in 4 before calling it a night. By morning, the dough had definitely doubled, so I gently stretched it out on a pan with a lot of olive oil and let it rise for a few more hours before baking. I tried the cling wrap here, but that was a total fail. Because the dough is so flat, the oil can easily soak right through the kitchen towel. What I found works best for me at least is wrapping the towel tightly around the pan so it doesn't fall into the oil. It kept the dough covered and happy while we snuck in our first really crisp morning lake walk of the season. Such a peaceful way to start the day. Now time to bake, and the fun part, those nice little dimples on top, so satisfying to press in. Bake it at 450 for about 25 to 30 minutes, and my dimples didn't turn out super cute this time. I think if I use the whole wheat, maybe I'll add some like rosemary or cherry tomatoes on top for a better presentation. I think I really like this recipe. I'll definitely be making this one again. I think it's worth a little bit extra effort to get the whole wheat, but you can make it crispy on the outside if you want, but my kids just don't like that. But it's real fluffy on the inside, a nice taste. It definitely still tastes like whole wheat flour, but I think my kids will get used to that over time. But the texture is really nice, not too thick, kind of like the way you like normal sourdough. It's a keeper, for sure. I can't decide if this one or the ciabatta bread that I made in the last video is better, but I almost think this one because it's a little bit more fluffy. My dad's in town and surprised me with some fresh blue crabs and shrimp, so making a delicious seafood boil tonight. It's one of our favorite meals for a crowd, simple, filling, and always a hit. I fill a big pot with potatoes, carrots, sausages, onions, corn, lemon, could add chicken, and then add water to about halfway up the food, a little Old Bay, a little salt and pepper, and bring it to a boil. I let those simmer for about 15 to 20 minutes, then add in the crabs. They cook for about 10 minutes, then throw the shrimp on top until they turn pink. It's really easy, and you know, crabs have always been my favorite food. My parents said they could never pick them fast enough for me, and honestly, I still feel the same way. Now, I've talked about these graham crackers before, but I can't do a whole wheat video without showing off one of our favorite snacks, especially since they're made with whole wheat flour and even better, einkorn. Einkorn is an ancient grain that's lower in gluten, making it easier to digest for some people, and it's packed with nutrients. It works so well with this recipe, has a nice, almost nutty flavor, and it's a great way to sneak all that goodness into a treat my kids absolutely cannot get enough of. They go through a batch of them in like a couple days. Now, the only issue is when you stick to the same spices, they all look the same sometimes, and I added 3 spoons of cayenne pepper instead of cinnamon. Oh, that would have turned out great. Anyways, the color gave it away before I committed, and crisis averted. For the base, just cream together butter and brown sugar. I only had a little brown sugar left and someone was eating it all, so I just added a little molasses in later. Something I only recently learned is brown sugar is literally just white sugar with molasses added into it, which means you can make it at home easily, control the flavor yourself, and definitely some brands of molasses are better than others. My little guy is always glued to the mixer when it's running. Honestly, I could watch it forever too if I'd let myself. There's something so calming about it. But once the flour mixture is in, just add some milk, honey, and vanilla. This is a double batch, and it's really easy to make that. But I always lean heavier on the honey and a little bit lighter on the sugar than the recipe I'll link. So this is a double batch, so there's 4. The recipe will say to do it in cling wrap, but I like to just do it straight in the parchment paper because that's what I can roll it out in afterwards. I just split it in 4 and let it sit in the fridge for about an hour for it to harden. It doesn't have to be perfect here, again. Someone else wants more taste? Now for the soup that's going to go with that focaccia bread, because it's just one of those days. It's dark and rainy outside, the kind of day that makes you just want to slow down and enjoy it. I do love a cozy rainy day, and it was perfect for this really nice German potato and sausage soup. Just start by simmering bratwurst in water, and I always add 1 beer for extra flavor. While those are simmering away, start chopping a beautiful mix of vegetables. The original recipe called for celery root, but I subbed in parsnip since that was the only thing I could find. It adds a nice earthy depth and just a hint of spice. Don't skip it. Cut the potatoes into roughly 1-inch cubes and dice the rest a bit finer, though honestly, I think my kids would have preferred more chunkier pieces. They tend to just want to see everything they're eating. The onions and a bit of leeks go into the pot with butter and olive oil, while my son, naturally tries to sell us some hot dogs in the background. Add in the rest of the chopped vegetables. Cover everything with bone broth or whatever broth you have. Let it simmer away for about 20 minutes. It's super simple, just takes a little time to chop, and it's even better the next day. Right before serving, add in the sausages along with a splash of cream and a pinch of nutmeg. That's it. A nourishing, warm, cozy meal, and that homemade warmed up focaccia bread is perfect for dipping in this. Well, another lovely day gone, and the graham cracker dough is chilled and ready to roll out. Since I'm already in the kitchen, I decided to make an apple cider creamer for my coffees the next week, and the most yummy, delicious apple cider ice cream using this leftover apple cider that I had stashed in the freezer. Just simmer the apple cider down to about a quarter of the original amount. This really concentrates the flavor without watering the end result down. While that's simmering and smelling good, I roll out the graham crackers. To make it easy, I just always use a generous amount of flour and keep pressing the edges back together until it's the size of about a regular baking sheet. They don't have to be perfect. Then for the creamer, I mix the reduced cider with some cream, bit of milk, and some sweetener, just eyeballing it and tasting it as I go. It turns my afternoon coffees into something that really feels like a treat without the Starbucks cost. Then I just reduce the rest of the cider down for that ice cream, using my kind of go-to vanilla ice cream recipe as the base: half cream, half milk, a third a cup of sugar, a pinch of salt, vanilla, and a bit more maple syrup here than usual. Warm it all together and then chill it down and churn it. It turned out so good. Honestly, to me, the best batch of ice cream I've made yet, and I'm definitely making this again for Thanksgiving to go on top of a pecan or apple pie. I wish the boys could taste these warm because they love them, but they're even better warm. Thanks so much for spending some time in the kitchen with me this week. I hope you found a few new ways to bring more whole wheat flour into your cooking, and maybe a few nice cozy meals too. If you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe to follow along for more from scratch real life meals. Take care and see you next time.